There's already a million reasons why everyone hates American tourists.
Quick, honey, take my picture. I got the pyramid in my hand.
When you meet an American traveling abroad and you ask them where they're from, they're probably not gonna say America. They're probably gonna say Florida, New York, California. But you see, we cannot locate most countries on the map, but we expect everybody else to know exactly where we're from. And if you don't know where the Bronx is, we'll ridicule you for it. As pompous as that is, it does underscore one important reality, that each state has as much power and influence as a foreign country. To put that in perspective, take a look at this map of the United States, except each state is replaced with the name of another country with a similar GDP as that state. You can see that it puts California on par with India, Texas with Brazil, and New York with Canada. But the main point to this episode is the competitive edge of each individual state and the industries they represent. You see, in this election season, the federal government as well as the president gets all the attention. But the strength of the United States of America is actually in the sum of all its separate parts combined. Hi, this is Joseph Zhang, and I'm the managing partner here at Zhang & Associates, where we solve legal problems with creative solutions. Welcome to the second episode in our series, Let's Talk America. This episode, we're going to be focusing on the competitive advantages of each individual state. And since we're in California, let's start here. California's $3.2 trillion GDP is the fifth largest economy in the world. It's home to Silicon Valley and all the major tech companies, including Apple, Alphabet, and Facebook, which is pretty impressive seeing as how the state isn't even 200 years old yet. And then you have New York, which is basically the most financially powerful location on Earth, home of the world's largest stock exchange. There are more billionaires living in New York City than anywhere else on the planet right now, all of them paying twice the rent for half the space. This city is so intertwined with money and luxury that even their #1 export is cut diamonds. Then we have Idaho with its farms, Illinois with its insurance, and Oregon with its CBD-infused beard oil market. And the point of this is that with a limited resource, talent, land, people, each state cannot be the jack of all trades. They pull together the top talent and companies and create policies that are favorable for the industries that are their crown jewel and make them the best in their class. You cannot see this more clearly than comparing California and Texas. Texas having less taxes, less regulation, and loves oil. In California, loving green energy, although Tesla is moving from California to Texas, but maybe that just means this company is big enough that can be housed in 2 different states. And the craziest thing about this is that even if the US doesn't dominate a particular industry like tech, it's not far behind on the second or the third, like tourism. So with all of the industries in the world, when 50 different states, each playing to their strength of multiple different industries, it's pretty incredible what the US has built. We're not like Croatia, dependent on tourism, or Venezuela with petroleum. We have a diverse economy. There's probably no better illustration than what this pandemic has shown us about the strength of the US economy. For example, the oil industry and the travel industry has taken a hit because of the pandemic. People are not traveling as much. But big tech has boomed because people can still work and people need Amazon and Zoom more than ever. So when you see any media complain or predict that the US is in decline, it's gonna fail as a country, you really have to ask, what are you talking about? Which state, which industry is failing? And is that gonna drag the entire US down? Think about it evaluating a company, right? When we predict if a company is gonna be more valuable or less valuable later on, we don't look at just one number, the profit, the revenue, the losses, the debt. We look at the whole picture. Is this company doing a transformation like Kodak? Instead of going into photography, it's going into chemicals, right? We predict the holistic picture. And the US is not just one entity. It's made up of all the individual states and the industries they represent. To put things in perspective, when a country's entire GDP is dependent on 1 or 2 particular industries and comparing that country with the United States of America, that's like comparing a mom and pop store with Amazon. To make a fair comparison, you really have to compare all of the US with entire regions of the world and not individual countries. For example, combining Japan's GDP with Korea, with China, with India, with Russia, then that's about the same size as the US. That is essentially what we are talking about when we're talking about the strength of the USA. And the craziest thing about all of this is that the US only has a population of 330 million people, which means With the limited amount of people that we have, we are producing a GDP output that rivals, not rivals, that actually is 5 times, 10 times the amount as the entire other countries combined. To give you a sports analogy, can you think of 11 athletes that can simultaneously compete against LeBron, Messi, and A-Rod in their sport simultaneously and beat them? That is what we are doing in the United States. I know things are hard right now in this pandemic. Perhaps it's the hardest that you've ever experienced in your life. With all of this suffering around you, the company, your state, and your relatives and friends, and it's probably been a long time since anybody has said to you that you are doing a good job. But if there's anything to take away from this episode, it's that the US is trying to excel, and each state and each industry is trying to be the best of its kind with a limited amount of resource. And it's extremely tough just even existing. And so that you are doing a good job. So this coming November 3rd, other than the presidential election, the most important thing that you can do that day for this country is to focus on the local elections in your state. What are the things and what are the policies that make your state great? You have a voice in deciding that outcome. And that's a wrap for today's episode on the competitive advantages of individual states. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. We'll love to see what your thoughts are on what makes your state great. All right, take care. Bye-bye.